put that on pocket belt, wherever you want to do. Okay. Do you want your laptop up here? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. It's up to you. Up to you. Oh, you don't need your laptop. You're going to see it up there.
Yeah,
You'll see it back there too. This morning we have a very special guest, and it's no surprise because you've already seen his picture on the front of the bulletin. We had a chance to be together last week at the Freed Hardeman Lectureship. Rafael Paguaga is here, and his wife, Gabriela, and they're being escorted by Carrie Gillis from Latin American Missions. I'll say more when we begin our worship hour in a little while. But for now, I'm just going to tell you that Rafael is someone I've known for 12 years. He's been my translator at the Bible School of the Americas in Panama City, Panama. He is an instructor there at the school. He's going to talk to us about some of the activities that are going on. Then we get to hear him preach at 10:30. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to him now and let him make his presentation.
Good morning. How you doing? Doing great? I can't believe that I'm here right now. I'm like daydreaming right now. It's so good to be here with you, brethren. I've heard so many things from you and the good work that you've done throughout the years. Brother Steve, I was asked this morning because I've been his translator, if he speaks a lot. And I didn't know how to respond because you need to speak when you're teaching a class. But he's just a blessing to my life. He's like a father to me, and he knows it. And we've been on the road. We've been doing conferences together, teaching Bible class, and just in different places in Panama. And I'm just so blessed to be here with you. This morning in our class, I would like to discuss the importance of being involved in mission work. And so I would really love to give you just the gist of what Latin American missions is, because our relationship and the way that we're connected, it's because of the work that great men of faith have put in this work. And so I would really like to start talking about how it all began, how Latin American missions began back in the day in the early 60s. As you can see in the picture that we're displaying, it's a church meeting in a chicken coop. Is that right? And that is, and the reason of why that was a reality back in the day is because there were no church buildings in Panama at all. There was just one congregation in the area of Balboa where American soldiers were meeting and having and trying to establish the church there, but they were just Americans. There were no Panamanian churches, and because there were no church buildings, they had to rent this place, and you can see there that there's some children, and we don't know if they even became Christians, but that was back in the early 60s. And so the American brethren that were working there, and some missionaries who were involved with the U.S. military, decided that they wanted to establish churches that were basically that they would be made out of Panamanians. And so they met this man from a very poor area called Cricamola in Panama, and he could barely speak Spanish because they speak a dialect there. And his name was Julio Cruz. And as they preached the gospel to him and he got baptized with another man, they trained him, and they decided that they would start a Bible school because they wanted to also train men from that country to establish more churches. And so you can see how modern that picture was, right? After he went through a program of 2 years in Bible training, they decided that he needed further training with one of his friends and also brother in Christ, whose name was Alfred White, and decided to send him to Lubbock, Texas. And he went and had further training. And you can see after in 62, that was in 62 because, let's see if this works. No. You can see how this picture says February 62, modern pictures, right? But that place where you're seeing Julio standing next to two of these American brothers in Christ is the place where the church in Chilibre is and has existed since then. But back then, it was just a mound and there was nothing. So what is the reality afterwards? Well, Julio Cruz came back and they established the school, the Bible School of the Americas, where I've been blessed to serve alongside with our dear brother Steve. And the Bible School of the Americas was established to train men from that country. And we do not have current data of the number of churches in Panama nowadays. We believe that there are more than 300 churches, probably 400 churches. Why? Why is mission work important, and why are we blessed as we get involved in mission work? Julio Cruz became the director of the Bible School of the Americas back in the day, and the graduates of that school became some of the current teachers, and his son-in-law is now the director of the Bible School, but was before a professor. This is the campus of the Bible School, where our brother goes every November. If you see him absent in November, he's there. He's there. He's working there. He's teaching all day long the Bible to Christians from all over Central and South America. So this is what happened. Since the school began, it received and accepted Christians from Ecuador and from other parts of Central and South America. And so the school has been training all of these Christians, all of these different generations since the mid-60s till nowadays. And how many churches do you think exist nowadays in Latin America because of that? More than 700? More than 1,000 churches? We don't really know. We don't know the number. But let me tell you something. My dad, he's a graduate of that school. My parents met on a medical mission trip. And so I'm indebted to this work because probably I wouldn't be born if they would have not met. And so did you meet Jack Farber back in the day probably? Did he come here? If he came here, he introduced my parents on a campaign in Honduras. And so that is why, I got to work in this. I was born thanks to this. And so I'm just blessed to be here and to talk to you about mission work. This is a picture of our current students. We have 21 students, carries that, 19 students. He's the director of Latin American missions. He's the best. And our students nowadays, they come from, we were blessed to have the first Bolivian student. There's a country in South America that's called Bolivia. I'm just clarifying this because I've got many friends from the States, and I tell them about countries, and they're like, where is that? And so, yes, we have a student from Bolivia, and we got students from Guatemala, 2 of them actually. We got students from Nicaragua, and all these weird names that I'm mentioning are in South and Central America. So what do they come for? They leave their homes, they leave their families, they quit their jobs and come and live on campus, and they receive Bible training all day long for 2 years. And they are sent throughout the country, and they go and preach the gospel, and they come back and study all the Bible. They have textual training, they have ministry training, and they have practical work to do. And so that's what they do for 2 years. And once they graduate, they go back home and establish congregations and do mission work and do evangelism and do conferences. And that's basically how the Bible school works. Every year we have new students coming, and every year a class graduates, and it's just a blessing to be a little part of all of this. And I know you've been a great part of this work, and I'm just so thankful to meet you and to let you know that you have blessed the kingdom in Central and South America. Heaven only knows how many people you've blessed with supporting this work, how many churches have been established, how many lives have been changed, how many people have hope now because of the work that you've been involved in. And you're a great part of this, and I'm unworthy to be here in front of you. And so I want to talk this morning about some of the things of what really makes us be involved in evangelism, in mission work. And mission work does not necessarily mean we have to go to another country. Mission work sometimes is just about being involved in our communities. And so let's begin by this idea of the self and the other. So let's think that there's a self and there's the other, and both are inseparable. What we mean by this is that as we're born, we're growing in whatever environment the Lord allows to grow, and we are influenced by the other. We cannot escape from the other. But what I mean by the other is that there are systems that surrounds us, that there's a family that surrounds us, that there's a neighborhood that surrounds us, that there's even a country and a culture, a language, and all of that influences ourselves. And that is how we form ourselves. And so once we get this idea, we understand that the other has an influence on us, and we cannot run away from it. That is why right now I need to speak in English, right? And that is why we're in America right now, and that is why we think the way we think, and we have sometimes ideologies, and we have a culture, and like you guys, you're on time. You're always on time. But in Latin America, Brother Steve know this, and Carrie know this. We are not on time. Like if our meeting is at 9, we'll be there 9:10, and we're just cool with it. It's just like, And so, but that's because of our culture and the way you understand being responsible, what it means. And we need to learn that, actually. But that's fine. So we are affected by the other, and that is how our self is shaped and we're formed. And so we even have different generations. I know that most probably in North Lexington, you probably have the 4 different generations, right? And so different ways of communicating things, different ways to perceive. Okay, so how long can I go? I don't want to. What's my time limit? 10? 10 and 5. 10 after 10. Sorry, I just don't want to speak. I really don't like to preach long lessons, but yeah. There'll be a bell. Okay. Is there a bell here? We need that. So I was saying that there are these different systems that shape who we are, how we think, and allow us to have our identity. So the question is then, let's see. The question is, how is this affecting our evangelism? Well, if our culture, if even our church culture is not doing emphasis on the necessity of sharing the gospel of Jesus, then we won't feel ourselves, we won't feel like there is a need to share the good news. We won't feel constrained to do it. And that is something that we should really think about, is how does my environment and my culture is affecting who I am as a Christian. So there's some sad news that I've heard and discussed with many great men of God in this country, which probably related to Bible school departments that back in the day they were really conservative on the Bible, but nowadays they have gone in liberalism, and they are promoting all of these different things that come from the world. And why did that happen? Well, the reason why that happened is because their environment, the culture, their systems affected them, and they had allowed, they opened that door, and that is why you got different churches who are teaching false doctrine. And that is why there are churches that have gone all the way back to denominationalism. And the reason is they allowed their systems to affect who they were. And so there's something that goes beyond our environment, our families, our neighborhoods. And that someone is God. He is the great author. Actually, all of the systems that surround us and shape who we are come from God. As we read in the book of Psalms, that's in Spanish, I'm sorry, but that's probably cool, right? It's Psalms 90. In Psalms 90, verses 1 and 2, it says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or even you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. All the things that surround us, they come from God. Actually, I was reading this, we see this also in Colossians in chapter 2 in verses 15 to 20, where it tells us that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, and all things come from him. God's original plan is that our families, is that marriage, is that neighborhoods, is that cultures, is that the whole society, they should be promoting God's character. He is independent. He is before all things, and he is the great author. He should be the first influence in our lives, but that doesn't happen nowadays. And what happens is our culture, family, ideologies, and sometimes just relaxing and allowing the world to influence us makes us stop being evangelistic. And so the reality is, as we read the Bible, God should be the main influence in our lives. And so what happens when God affects ourselves? Well, we will be turned towards the others. And that means that if God is a part of our lives, we won't keep that within us. We won't keep that locked in the church building. We will go out and affect the other systems. We will share God with our families, with our neighbors, with our culture, with our country, and we will even go beyond and do mission work. And so that pattern, we see it in Jesus' calling as he's telling people how to become his disciples. He says that if anyone comes to him and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, cannot be his disciple. The whole calling of Jesus to our lives is to put him instead of ourselves and going out and do work and do the outreach of all the systems that surround us. And that is mission work, actually. That is evangelism. The word evangelism in its original language implies telling a good news, sharing a good news with others. The whole concept of evangelism requires sharing it with others. And we need to ask ourselves this question: are we being evangelistic in our neighbors? Are we being evangelistic in our colleges, with our classmates, with our families? Are we doing it? Are we reaching others? If we're not doing it, it means there's a struggle with the self. And so let's think about this idea of what Jesus did in his care for others that influenced his outreach. In the book of Ephesians, Paul is drawing this beautiful picture of this Roman procession and how, emperors or even the captains of the different armies in Rome were marching towards a town, going back to Rome, going back home, and they were doing this procession as they were celebrating that they came victorious of these wars. And so Paul is using this image and talking about how Jesus is victorious upon death and how he was risen. He is risen indeed. And as he's drawing this picture, he goes into this paragraph in the book of Ephesians, and he says, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives, and he gave gifts to men. In saying he ascended, what does it mean but that he had also descended into the lower regions of the earth? How far did he go? How far did he go? Wasn't he in heaven? You remember that chapter 2 Philippians? He was being worshipped in heaven. We know he's forever and ever, he's been praised by his holy creatures in heaven. He was being praised. He's been called in the book of Isaiah and the vision of Isaiah, holy, holy, holy. Isn't it comfortable to be in heaven, being worshipped? The eternal Son, the everlasting Son, was glorified in heaven. What made him descend? What made him come down? How far did he go? And for whom? For us? And so the question is, are we struggling with ourselves? How far are we willing to go for someone else? If we did it, does that affect our evangelism, our outreach? We will go and share it with others if we understand the way Jesus cared for others. We read in the book of Luke that as he was starting his ministry, he says these words about his purpose in this world. You remember when he gets lost in Jerusalem, in the temple, and his parents are looking after him and did not find him, and they come back and found him asking questions and answering to these teachers, and then he says these words, didn't you know that I had to be in my Father's house? He was being trained before beginning his ministry, and he understood his mission for others. But then these words come out as he begins his ministry. In Luke chapter 4 and verse 17 to 20, he says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. His whole purpose was blessing others. It was not about himself. It was about others, and that led his ministry. Now, we're all called to do ministry. That is God's calling. We're all called to reach out to others, to bless others. And that was his sole purpose. And so our question is if we are trying to reach out to others. I've been told, so for the new ones that just came into the class, excuse my accent because I've been told a few weeks ago that it sounds like Nacho Libre mixed with some of Kerry's accent because I'm hanging out with him all the time, and so a little Southern, and that's because I'm not American. It's not my first language. I'm struggling with it. But let me tell you something. I really just want to let you know that you're part of reaching others by what you do, and you have blessed others by being part of LAM and by allowing our brother to go down and teach Jewish customs. Isn't it right? And so, man, it's such a blessing to be here. So, how did Jesus affect his systems as he was in this world? How did the creator of the universe bless the life of others? We see that he had clarity that it was not about himself but about others. When he tells these words in Matthew, and says, the Son of Man has come to save that which was lost. He had clarity, and that is why he reached out to the Samaritan woman at the well, Nicodemus in John chapter 3, the rich young ruler, and Zacchaeus, and the woman caught in adultery. And all of these examples is because wherever he was about others and not about himself. He was able to put himself even in uncomfortable situations just to bless the lives of others. He was not about himself. He was about blessing someone else. And that is why we need to read the Gospels and see who is our model to be effective in mission work. And that is why we will be challenged in our faith to say, I will start by my local neighborhood, and I will try to reach my friends. And that will make us go further and say, I want to be on a mission trip. I want to reach out to people in other countries. And feeling uncomfortable of using a translator maybe, if you have never used one. And feeling uncomfortable of not having air conditioning maybe. And sweating. And just going through all of those things that we really do not like sometimes, because we will not be about ourselves, but about others. And so, what will make someone be passionately involved in mission work? If we're in different environments, and God has blessed our lives and influences our lives, how will we go out? We see this in the life of the apostles. Jesus told them that all authority in heaven and on earth had been given to him. And he says these words, therefore go. So the reason why mission work is done or evangelism is done is because we understand his authority. That is the whole point of this paragraph, is because he has all authority both in heaven and on earth. Therefore, the conclusion of that statement is go. Only the ones who understand the great other, which is God, will go. Only the ones who are influenced by God will reach out to others. Only the ones who are able to capture God's authority and the risen Jesus, the risen Christ, will go. And then he says, they will go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them. And so we see again this image, this graph that I've been showing you this morning. God will affect ourselves, and we will go out to others. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. We found it. We find it here. We will go. We will make disciples. Do we really understand our challenge? In Acts, in chapter 1 and verse 8, we see kind of like a different iteration of this statement of Jesus. And you see again how Jesus told them, and you, talking about them, the apostles, the self, will be my witnesses. You see again, God being the reason why they're going. And then it says, in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. We see the other. They will start from their hometown, from their local place, and smoothly and passionately go out to other regions. And this is the outline of the book of Acts. This is what the book of Acts is all about. It's starting from the local place and reaching out to others. Do we understand our challenge? And so, let's see, I got lost here. In Romans, in chapter 8 and chapter 9, in verse 3, we read these words of Paul that really break our heart, right? It says, for I could wish that I myself were accursed and cut off from Christ for the sake of my brothers, my kinsmen according to the flesh. Was Paul about himself? Or about others? Do we have this mindset? Look, the mindset that we would decide to be cut off from Christ, to be condemned, just that others might be saved. Do we have this mindset? Are we there? You see, introspection is a hard thing to practice because it really tells us our struggles, right? And we will find out that we are selfish many times. And sometimes it happens that the more blessed that we are, the more that our focus would be on ourselves. And that is our struggle. But as we read these words, we should be challenged to reach out to others. In 2 Corinthians, we see his mindset again, and he says, and I very gladly spend and be spent for you. Through the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. And he's telling this to the Corinthian church, a church that he struggled with because they were even questioning his authority and his apostleship. But you see him telling them he loves them, even though he might be loved less. That didn't stop Paul. In Romans chapter 15 and verse 19, he says, from Jerusalem and all the way around to Illyricum. Illyricum. Is that right? Did I come out right? Illyricum? I have fulfilled the ministry of the gospel of Christ. That is his outreach. Okay? And so what happens when we die to self and want to reach out others for Christ? Well, you'll be in Peru maybe, under the Peruvian sun, walking with a team of your brothers and sisters in Christ who have decided to go far for others. And that's what happens in our campaigns with Latin American missions. You will go out and probably go to Puerto Armuelles and reach out other people with the gospel. You will be able to share the good news with people from with different languages, different cultures. You'll probably meet children that have had a hard life. You'll probably meet children who are in poverty, but they just love hearing about Jesus. And you might be the person who will be blessed to share that good news with them. And that is why we have partnerships like this. That is Julio Cruz, the brother who these American missionaries found and baptized that I told you at the beginning of the class, being a translator in a Bible study. All his life, Julio Cruz shared the gospel. More than 400 congregations just in Panama because someone stopped thinking about himself and thought about others. Finally, I would like to show you that this is the program for this year. This is that's a QR code if I'm not wrong, and this is the program for campaigns for 2025. So bad at this. We have different types of campaigns. If you want to go, if you want to join us, we have a Yes To campaign, which basically is a campaign that's aiming towards training young people in evangelism, and that's called Yes To. And we will go to Honduras. There's another campaign that will be that will happen in Panama, and another one in Peru. And so if you're interested in doing mission work, if you are mindful and you really want to share the good news and want to join us into these efforts, you're more than welcome. And your life will be changed if you have not done this. Also, you can join us on a medical campaign. We have 2 campaigns that will be held in Peru, and the other one in Peru, the other one will be in Honduras, and you have the dates there. And we also have a camp that's a backwoods camp. It's Mission and Evangelism Camp. And so it's going to be in June 8th to the 13th. And so thank you for your attention. Excuse my language. I'm just learning to use it. But thank you so much for all that you blessed our lives. And I'm just unworthy to be here, but I love you and thank you so much.